the applications. So let's have a brief moment of prayer. Father, we thank you, we bless you because of your faithfulness. We thank you for how you have brought us together today for our purpose. Your desire for us, regardless of what is going on, is to make progress in life. And we are here together tonight discussing, reviewing what happened last year, and then to discuss how we can make our progress. We are praying, Lord, that you will open our eyes and you will grant unto us insight that will make us to achieve that will, that desire that we have in Jesus' name. Thank you, dear Lord, because you have answered. In all that we'll be doing today, we pray that you glorify yourself. For in Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Before we start, we have already started, but before we discuss the agenda of today, I want to say one or two things. It could be an encouragement to you. It could be as a way of reviewing what happened last year and so on. So it's going to be a very short one. And I actually target progress. Progress. In life, it's always important that we look at what we are doing to see if there is progress. So if there is no progress, we know what we need to do. And then you should also know that progress is incremental, is in progress. And while you are making progress, one, you must know that there's need for you to make attempts. So it means that even when you are not making attempt at all, it's not a progress. And then in the course of making one attempt or the other, there may be some failure. Well, people call it failure, but I have a new approach, or I have an approach when I was applying, and the approach was, there is not a failure. If I try something and it's not working out at the moment, it's only revealing to me how such thing could be done without being successful. For example, I applied last year for something and there was no progress, or I didn't get any admission or any funding. So that has already revealed to me that if I apply in the same way for the same program in the new year, then I may not get any positive response. So, and because of that, it could also lead to disappointment. Imagine you apply to 5 schools and then out of 5 schools, you didn't get any love letter, or you didn't get any congratulations, or what you got were love letters. I call them love letters. Some call them rejection. But I think there's an ideology there. If I call it love letters, it will encourage me to know that, oh, I need to do something that will make it more what as expected. And because of that, you now need to now sit down and then investigate. You need to make some inquiry. What did you do last year that didn't go well? And then what do you need to do? And then that will make you to redirect your focus. It's either you need to redirect your focus or you need to re-strategize. If you do what you did last year in this year, the same way, the same thing, the tendency of getting the result you got last year is higher. But if you sit down, you investigate, you inquire, you do some thorough study of what the process is all about, of what you are planning to apply to, of the schools you want to apply to, then that will make you to now re-strategize. Do I need to revisit those schools again where I applied to last year, or do I need to remove those schools from my list and then look forward to other schools? And that will now make you to attempt the same task again. And now that you are attempting the same task again, with the mind that, well, you have failed before, the mind that you were disappointed before, with the mind that because of the disappointment, you have done a thorough research and a thorough investigation. That will make you to now do a thorough, in the course of attempting the task again, you are mindful of every task. For example, if I want to share my own story, I applied to Kent State for the first time. I got love letter. Second time, I got love letter. And then I reach out to any department I applied to for the first time, or any time and I get love letter. sometimes I don't want to apply to the same department again. So, and I reached out to another department in the same school, and the person said, wow, nobody has applied on a full-time. If you can apply for this same program on a full-time, you are going to get it. The first time I applied for English, the second time I think I also applied for English, but the third time I applied for something else, which was special education. And he said, if you apply, you are going to get it. And I applied. Even I told the guy, I said, I didn't have money. He said, don't worry, I'll pay for your application fee. I applied, I got the admission, and then they were in the process of, giving me a funding. They wanted to be sure if I will be coming to school before I go somewhere else. So why do I need to say that? Is for you to know that there may be disappointments. Yeah, those things are going to test your progress. And then when you're now making the attempt again, you are sure that you are going to make progress. And in the course of making an attempt, in the course of studying, it's going to involve you telling someone who knows about the process. And that's why we are here to assist. And then not only that, you are going to need to do some thorough study on yourself, by yourself alone. Like we see the picture I'm showing you, see the guy is even almost confused. He had read many things and he was confused. But you see the lady that, even though the guy was confused, the lady was not confused. And then you see the third picture that it was not one person doing it, because sometimes when you are doing it alone, it can be so discouraging, it can be so challenging. And you should also have it in mind that when you come here, you are going to be alone. That's why in a department or for a course, you may just be 2 or 3 for a program. So everybody is going to be alone. But at the time, you are going to have a problem that you need to, network and tell someone about it. And that's why even the scripture says we should study to show ourselves approved. And studying in this time around, or investigation of some of those processes this time around, is more easier because we have many tools that can help us. There are many tools that we can now use that have made the study more easier, unlike, before. So we have many AI tools that can help, and these AI tools are what we need to do. We don't have any choice. Regardless of whatever we want to say, you still need to use this tool. You can't imagine you want somebody to review your SOP, and you have not used any AI tool to even check what is the grammar correction level. The person that wants to review your SOP or review any of your documents, it doesn't need to be reviewing, grammatical error. It makes the work more easier if you have used any of the AI tools to make, proper correction of the grammatical errors. So the person is just trying to now see, oh, how do I need to rearrange or format what I want to present or what I'm sending to this person to review. It makes the work more easier for us. So we are going to now be able to be productive. And then not only that, we'll be able to attend to as many as possible. Bear in mind that we are also students, and then we still have to go to classes, we still have to do research, we still have to attend conferences and many other things. And we still have family that we want to even still spend some time with. So, and I pray that in all this, the Lord will help you in Jesus' name. The last thing you should also not forget is that prayer is non-negotiable. In this process, you cannot do without prayer, because imagine, I remember when I was the program where I am at the moment, I reached out to the person, he wasn't responding. I reached out to someone else in the same department, he responded, and he said, if I could talk to the person who did not respond, that the chance of getting into the program is very high. All through the process, the lady will not respond. But it was after they have selected and they want to now do interview. That was how the lady, oh, yes, I must have time now. And then we had interaction and eventually got accepted into the program. You have reached out to lecturers, no one is responding. You should also know that those lecturers are also going through one issue or the other. And then some of them are going through a problem and so on, and that will not make them to respond on time. So, but when you are praying, you are not only praying for them, for God to touch their heart, you're also praying that God should create a space in the department that you are going for. You're also praying that God should provide, funding, grants for the department you are going to. And then you're also praying that God should guide you and lead you to the school that you want to apply to. So everybody is not just going to be in one school, but when God guides you in all these things, you have done your work thoroughly, you have done your thorough work. Then when you pray, it becomes more easier. So somebody is not going to say, oh, I'm not going to do my work. I'm only going to focus on prayer. No, we must live a balanced Christian life. And even when you come here, the same thing we still have to continue. Without prayer, there can be conflict of interest with a lecturer who has decided to work with you. But in the course of committing them in God's hand, the Lord will continue to help you. And I pray that the Lord help you and guide you in all this in Jesus' name. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this short exhortation. And we are praying, oh Lord, that as many who are discouraged, as many who have been disappointed because of last year, or they have been trying it before this time, I pray that you will encourage them just as you did to Elijah. And as they are coming up again now with a new strength, you will guide them, you will assist them. And by this time next year, we'll have many of them joining us in Jesus' name. Thank you, because I know you have answered. For in Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. So on the agenda, as you see, one of the things that we said we want to iron out is scaling up your application packet. Like when I was discussing, I mentioned that if you use the same approach that you used last year, you use the same application packet you used last year, the tendency that you are not going to be accepted into the program is very high. So if that is the case, so what do you need to do? There is need for you to now download all those materials you use, for example, your SOP, your CV, and then create a separate folder for them. Leave the one you can put those ones for last year in a separate folder. And then the one that you want to now do, then you now need to begin to go over them one after the other with your CV. Even before you send it to us, with your CV, you have to go over it as, okay, between last year and this year, what development have I made that I need to include in my CV that have not been there before? And to be frank, if between last year and now, there had not been any development in your CV, nothing is adding up in your CV, there is a fundamental problem. Reason is that it's suggesting that you are not making any progress. I understand that you are disappointed, but you should know that even what's it called, in the time of Gideon, they were using one hand to strengthen themselves, and they were using one hand to guide. So that means you cannot say because you are applying and then you leave everything, no other progress. That is not sufficient. If within 1 year nothing is adding, for example, you are not adding any certificate online program that you have done, you are not adding any publication, you are not adding anything, any skills that you have learned, and you are coming for the grad program for a 1 year, no progress, something is fundamentally wrong. I understand that so many things are going on in Nigeria, like the finance, the economy, the health, the power supply, and so on. But regardless of all this, there are some people who are also in the same country and they are making headway, not because they were born with silver spoons or they have everything, but there are several factors that have made things easier to be done nowadays. We have AI tools, and those things are what we need to make use of. So apart from that, if possible, get a letter of recommendation that were sent last year for your application. Some of you, or sometimes, maybe I don't want to be direct saying some of you, sometimes it is only when people need lecturers for letter, that is when they get back, that's when they reach out to them. That is not fair. If you have been communicating with them since that last year, you can just ask, oh, thank you for last year. Even though I was not accepted into any program, I want to evaluate all the documents I use for my application. I wouldn't mind if you can send me a copy of the letter you forwarded to the school. When they send a sample of letter that they forwarded to school, it is your responsibility to sit down with that letter. I know of someone who even confessed to me, he missed the admission because the professor that he was relying on could not send a well-detailed letter of recommendation. And because of that, the person missed the admission. So you never know, because getting accepted into a program does not depend on your SOP alone. It doesn't depend on your CV alone. So everything is holistic. They look at the CV, they look at the SOP, they look at the sample, writing sample, if they tell you to upload. They also look at the recommendation letter, because that is suggesting to them that if you have worked with people before and they can recommend you, and they look at the content of the letter, that will suggest to them that even if you are accepted into the program, then the chance of you doing the same thing you have done before is higher. And that's why it's possible, or it's important, you get those documents, and then so that you can review those documents, add whatever that is needed to be added before you use the same document for another application. Yes, that's what I want to say for the first one. I know Dan has one or two things to add to that.
Thank you, Shegun. Hi everyone again. I think Shegun has like laid the ground for like the most important thing. I think the other thing I will add again is we have to you have to take ownership of the whole application process. So we can provide like a million information. We can provide whatever amount of information or directions we need to provide for you. But if you don't take ownership, it's not going to go anywhere because you're applying for yourself. And so I would say, like Shegun said, speak with your recommenders. I think also you should have like some sort of relationship with your recommenders. Take out time to speak with them. Speak to them about what you're applying to, the schools you're applying to. Like Shegun was saying, in the past set of students that were applying to my program here, someone submitted a recommendation letter, or the recommender sent a recommendation letter that was a copy and paste of another person. So imagine I'm a man and somebody is writing a recommendation letter for me and he's saying her, she. Already the person who is reading the recommendation letter already knows that this person does not know anything about you, because if the person cannot simply tell, like, get your gender right, it means then how can I trust you to talk about Shegun's research experience or research skills or personal skills? And so that is why it's important that we have that conversation with our recommenders. You are the one who knows what the application means to you, right? You're the one who knows what the program you're applying to means to you. So you have to reach out to them, right? Like Shegun said, important things they have to write about. They have to speak about your research skills. They have to speak about your ability to work independently. They have to speak about your ability to be innovative, right? If you face a problem, how do you solve the problem? And a good example is always like using your project. Okay, Shegun worked on this. He had to figure out maybe the methodology. He had to figure out this thing to make the project work. That gives them like, that shows that, okay, like Shegun said, that shows that you coming in, you have certain skills and that you have a bit of experience. It might not be the biggest experience in the world, but you have like a bit of experience in grad school, right? Because people want to know that you are able to undergo grad school and not and not and not fall out because because truthfully grad school is tough. There are times when like it's going to be hard. So you have to be able to take that. Then another thing again that I was going to add also is when um when we're looking to apply, let's try gathering information is the hardest thing because you literally have to spend a lot of time. And I know internet, data, electricity can be a problem, but when you're able to do it effectively, it saves you a lot of heartache. It saves you a lot of problems. Gathering information is very important. So you have to take out your time to ensure that you are gathering the information you need, the right information you need. And when you gather the information, that's another thing that we have like this group for. You can always share that your information sheet or whatever you have gathered for a certain program. Oh, this is what I have gathered so far. And then we can say, okay, it looks like this area is missing. Is there something on finances? We see that, okay, you didn't put anything on finances there. You didn't put anything on application fee or English language requirement. We can say, okay, by looking at this, I think you should go back and look at it or send an email to the grad coordinator if there's nothing there on the website. So, like I said, gathering information is central to the whole application process. You know how we say information is power. Like it's the most powerful thing in this whole process. And you have to do that on your own. We can only give you pointers, but like you have to actually take that step to do it on your own. I'll hand back over to Sheldon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before today's meeting, I was, trying to see what happened during the process. Also, everything we're sharing with you is also the same thing that we went through. Similar thing we went through. I will just share this. Let me just share this screen. I applied to a school. I'm using that as an example because I'm not in that school, for example. Now, um, and you should know that whatever you use, for example, please take note. If somebody has already used one document for a school and you want to use that document again, they will track it. So if somebody wants to now copy this one and say you want to use it, they will track it and they will know that it's not original. And we have seen people who were rusticated, they were sent back to Nigeria after they had already got his visa because they discovered that the document they used were not genuine. They copied it from somewhere else. Now, for example, look at this, just this paragraph of my SOP for a particular school, right? And then I was mentioning in my SOP that I had already interacted with the person I want to work with, and that the interaction were even through the email corresponding, and then we also had some Zoom call. And we even had discussed extensively on what I wanted to do. And I had to include it in the SOP. That had already given them some, insight that, oh, this one is not just a novice. He had done some thorough checking. He had known the lecturer he wanted to work with. He had known the specialization of the lecturer that I wanted to work with. He had even known the current thing that the lecturer is working on. Because sometimes the department will not update their description online. So it is your responsibility to check the person you want to work with. Like this one, I got the name from the website. I went to Google Scholar and then I checked the latest work that is actually working on. And then I check Google Scholar, check everywhere else. And sometimes I will even send message to him on email, he will not reply. But when I saw any of his material or any of his latest publication, I will read and I will also make a sign that I've read it. So sometimes you use some of those things to get connected. So when I had meeting with him, was like, no, with everything we have discussed, you are good to go for the program. And I didn't even stop there. I still messaged the grad coordinator and I had a meeting with the grad coordinator and he was like, oh, with everything we have discussed, if you apply into the program, though your research may change, but we assure you that you are going to get into the program. And then I went ahead to make the application fee because in that school, you must pay application fee. And that's why I tell people that if you are going to pay application fee to any school, make sure that you already know the chances of getting selected into the program of that school before you make the application. If not, if you don't know your chances, you don't have all the documents, you don't have everything, and then you are making the payments, $75 is a lot. It's going to be as a waste of money. So don't just say, oh, I'll just apply. And then don't just be looking for free school every time. When you look for free school every time, even though I know what I went through before I could pay the money, but I had to just pay it, and I think it was only school that I paid application fee. Other ones were just free because I had already known the chances. So even if you are going to apply to free schools, at least let it be that just one or two schools you are going to pay. Reason is that any school that makes application fee free, that school will have pool of applicants, and then it reduces your chance of getting selected, especially when your portfolio is not strong. But schools that will demand that you should pay application fee, schools like that will have limited number of applicants, and then that will increase your chances, especially when your application packet is very strong. Those are the things that you need to do. And part of what you also need to add to your CV, if you are planning to do any program at the moment and it doesn't have anything to do with sciences, AI, engineering, or health, medicine, cancer, even regardless of the field where you are, if it doesn't have anything to do with sciences, you need to sit down again and check, because the country is now spending money on STEM. So regardless of your field, you must ensure that your research is aligning with sciences. Now, it doesn't mean that because I'm studying language, for example, and I'm going to be working on what's it called, cancer or breast cancer or any cancer. No, What it means is that I must look for an aspect of AI technology that can be introduced in my own into my field, or that I can use in my field, that can make the analysis or that can make my work more scientific. And that's why we tell you that some of those skills are not what you're already used to, especially in Nigeria. Now, and for you to get some of those skills, you need AI tools. I don't know, some of you may not even know some of those AI tools. And those AI tools are there to give you a guide. For example, you want to work on a project and you are saying, oh, I'm in humanities. ChatGPT, can you suggest project topic that I can do that interfaces language and science, or language and AI? It can give you a bunch of topics. So it is now your duty to now look through the topics. Which one is actually similar or related to what you already had, or which one is related to what you can do? You pick the topic. You can even pick that same topic, modify the topic, and then put it on ChatGPT again and say, write SOP on this. It can give you a bunch of ideas. And then because the idea that ChatGPT is going to give you will be more sophisticated than any idea you can read, like especially maybe in Nigeria, or you have not been reading publications. So it can give you such idea. But even when the ideas are actually generated, because it is AI, so it's generating from the common templates, it is your responsibility or duty to still sit down and make those things genuine, so that before you even use it at all, or before you submit your document, you have already checked AI, you have checked the professionalism level, and you have seen that the document I'm submitting is genuine. AI only gave you idea on what you want to do, and that will make your idea to be what you brought to the table. Because sometimes somebody is doing, you are planning to do a PhD work, and the PhD work you are doing, it can only be relevant in one local government in Nigeria, and you want to do that same thing in the US. Who that won't help? It doesn't contribute to anything. They'll be thinking and say, no, this one doesn't know what to want to do. They are looking for people that want to solve problems, and that's the purpose of PhD program. You have identified a problem that you want to solve, and your SOP, you want to mention both the problem you have identified, how you think you can solve it, but you don't have the skills, and that's why you're applying to the program. And you have identified those who have been in the program for long, have done some things, and they have solved similar problem, and that's why you want to learn under them, so that when they teach you all those things, you can apply it to the problem you wanted to solve, and that makes it more easier. So you can use many certificate programs to update your CV. Coursera is there. You can even apply for financial aid. They can give you, and then you have Udemy is there. You have Data Camp is there, and so on. And let me also add that if you don't have, if your work has always been qualitative, especially for those who are in humanities, your work has always been on qualitative, you should begin to look at how your work can be quantitative. Except you are in literature. If you are in language, they don't want to do anything qualitative again. They want to make everything quantitative. In fact, when you finish your study, they want to ensure that your study can be replicable. Somebody can still use that same data you use. You can make it open access. Someone else can use the same data you use, and then it can replicate the same analysis. It may not get exact analysis you get, but it's going to be similar. So if, for example, all your study have been qualitative, no quantitative at all, you can't use R, you can't use SPSS, you can't use Pratt, you can't use all those software, and you want to apply to grad school, I'm sorry, you need to go and learn those things. Otherwise, when you come, it will be frustrating, because no lecturer will say, oh, come and sit down, I want to teach you R, or come and sit down, I want to teach you SPSS, or I want to teach you Python. It is going to be your responsibility to learn those things, because when you come, they have the assumption that you are already aware of those things, and you are going to be making use of them in your research. Dan, you want to add one or two things?
Just following up on what you said, like when you're applying, you have to remember, just like Shegun said, you have to remember that you're applying with an international community. You're applying with people from China, people from people from the US also, people from every part of the world, India, Japan, and we cannot compare our educational system. We can't also compare our educational opportunities with them. And a good example is like in medicine and the STEM and the area of STEM. People get, for example, in the US, people after grad school, after undergraduate, sorry, people get to go and intern or work for a year or a month or whatever amount of time with the NIH. I had a classmate who, when she finished undergrad, she worked in the NIH for 2 years. If you want, I had most of my classmates worked as research assistants within their various universities in the US and India. So that's a lot of experience. So you have to ensure that when you are prepared, when you are like putting forth your foot, you are putting your best foot forward, right? And just like Sheldon said, the fact that some of these websites where you can learn certain skills, right? They offer financial um, um, opportunities like for you to not pay, like scholarships of some sort, or a bit of a waiver for the fees for like learning a certain skill. I think we have to look into that. Like, what opportunities can I use to upskill myself and then make myself a stronger candidate? Because, like Shegun said, I've been in classes where a lecturer is teaching something and instead of going into like teaching a certain thing, the lecturer asks, "Oh, this is something that we all learned that I'm sure you all learned in undergrad." And the whole class said yes. And the lecturer went on and continued teaching something else. I had to go and learn those things like at home. I had to go back and like read up on those things. Because and that's what grad school is, either master's or PhD. There are a lot of things that they would not go back and teach you, right? Because they expect the education is a continuous process, that you must have learned this like part in undergrad. And so if they are supposed to teach you the next level and the next level and the next level. So nobody is going to go back. And the good thing about for those in medicine, for those in STEM, if it's R or Python you want to learn for data analysis, there are lots of videos on YouTube. There are also free data sets. One good thing is that when you go on YouTube or whatever website you want to learn, right, they always put up the data set that they use for practice. They put up a link or a GitHub link to it. So you can always go and like download that data set and use it for your own practice analysis, right? Simple analysis. Like you should be able to know how to like um use R to like the first thing, how can I load in data? How can I integrate my data into R? How can I load my data in? How can I classify the data into various parts and all those things? You have to know how to do it because when you go for even like the R class, it's not really a beginner's class, right? In the university, when you're taking your bio certificate class as a graduate student, it's not really a beginner class. It's like a step above beginner. So if you are not like aware, right, it would you would find yourself lagging behind in that. So while, like Shegun said, while you are preparing for your application, go through your CV, go through your application package. This program that I applied to last year, I still want to go into that program. What important skills do I need to go in there? Another thing I do is I constantly go to program websites and look on their student page, right? So usually each program has like a student page. You have students, you have faculty page. Now on the student page, you see like from the first year PhD students or master students to the oldest of them, maybe like someone who has been at PhD for 5 years or 6 years. And usually when you click each of them, some of them are not clickable, right? But when you click each person, you
Yeah,
see
is
either
the one deep.
what you see what they
Yeah.
have
So
you see what they have like published or which lab they are or what they do. And it gives you an idea of the skills that they have. You could check like at random, maybe 4 or 5 people. And so you see the kind of skills they have. And it gives you an idea of, okay, what should I focus on? Right? But always know that be it humanities, be it medicine, be it STEM, be it languages, you have to have both quantitative and qualitative skills. You should be able to like design an experiment or design a research. You should be able to analyze your data also, or collect and analyze your data. So just like Shegun said, is it R, is it SPSS, is it Python? You have to understand R at least. If you don't know Python, no problem. But R has like a lot of documentations online that you can always check. R is so easy that okay, If you want to like do this, you can go online and check, how do I do this? There will be somebody that has put something there. Because if you can, because that part of grad school is that you should be able to analyze your data on your own. Nobody's going to analyze your data for you, right? And another thing that helps also is because when you go into interviews or when you go into conversations with professors, let's say you send a cold email to a professor, and then you have a meeting, right? And the professor is then discussing with you, okay, in our lab, we do this, we have this data, we analyze it like this. And you have an idea of how the analysis goes, right? Because you know how to use the analysis pipeline or whatever. You can also like move that conversation in a way that it's different, right? From someone who does not know anything. And that kind of strikes a chord with the professor, right? Because the professor is like, okay, you know this, you know this, you know this, you have an idea about this. And I'll just close and put a hand out to Shegun with an example. When I applied, the same year I applied to the University of Pittsburgh, I applied to the to SUNY Albany, that's the state of the University of New York in Albany, because it's a heavy virology program. And I had two interviews with two professors. One was good, but he had told me that, oh, we are a small department. The second person, she's mostly into data analysis, right? She's more of like a big data person than bench work. She does very little bench work. And so she spoke to me that, oh, they analyze their data with this, with this, with this, with this pipeline. And I had not used those pipelines before. And that was how, like, you know how you leave an interview, you know you have lost it already. Because as much as she was trying to be nice, it was apparent that if I was to come into the lab, I might spend like 2 years or a year even trying to find my feet, right? Before getting there. But immediately after that interview, because I had it before the University of Pittsburgh interview, I started practicing my R. And when I would come into the University of Pittsburgh, my three rotations were in dry labs. I'm not in a dry lab now. I'm in a clinical setting. But like I worked in a lab that was strictly C++, MATLAB, Python programming. And even though it was stressful for me, I was able to keep up. Like I was able to analyze my big data and everything there in that lab and discover whatever mutations I needed to discover. So that's why I'm telling you that it's not like the person doesn't want to take you in, but it's just normal. I've collected a grant from NIH. This is to analyze this data. It means that from that grant, I'm going to spend money on PhD students and master students to help me achieve that. So it's just normal. I'm not going to take somebody who does not have the skill, who is going to take 1 year to learn that skill, right? When I can take somebody who already has the skill and we can move fast because these grants have a lifespan, 4 years, 5 years, 3 years, dependent on the grant. So it means that I have to get it, and you have to submit data like yearly, I think, for PIs. So so it's a time crunch. So it's a fast moving environment. They want people who can, they might not be the best, but they have an idea, and so you can move quickly. And so that's why, like Sheldon said, either you're using AI to check it out what you need, or you're taking out your own, or you're using your own time to do it. But you have to figure out what do you need for your field? What do you need to learn? What do you need to know how to do? And then when you know that, you can then check, okay, what offers me an opportunity to do this in the cheapest way, but still effective? Cheapest in the sense that I don't need to pay 100 million or 100,000 to learn this skill, but I can learn it at a very subsidized amount. Okay, let me go to the website, let me figure it out. Okay, I work 9 to 5. Maybe I can dedicate Friday evenings and the whole of my Saturday to learning it. And so that means I might have to learn at a longer span than if I was doing it every day. Or can I give 1 hour every day to it? That kind of thing, right? So you're able to now design your life to, okay, to achieve this in the next 2 months, I should be able to, and then you set goals. In the next 2 months, I should be able to do basic analysis of data. Maybe on R, I should be able to find mean, median, mode, be able to plot a graph or plot a scatter plot or something or do linear regression on R, that kind of thing. So you have to like figure that out. And thankfully, like Shegun mentioned, you have the AI tools that help you to literally scrape the internet. What AI does, right, is simple machine learning, is what you would have had to do by yourself. Check the various websites. But what it does instead, it helps you to scrape the data in all those websites and then analyze it, interpret it based on whatever training data set has been given. and shortens the time that you might have spent like a week checking Google, using Google. So it saves you time. But like Shegun said, you cannot now take that data and now give it out like that because even AI took the data in, analyzed it, and interpreted it. So you also must take that information, analyze it, and interpret it based on what you want to do. And so that goes back to what I said initially. You have to have an idea of what you want to do and what is required. Because if not, if you have the data, there's nothing you can do with it. Let me hand over back to Shegun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Let me also add this before I share something with you. Let your dream of what you want to do be big, especially if you're applying for a PhD program. They are solving world problem. Anything that has to do with African problem, they are interested in it. And that's why you need to do thorough research. There are some universities in the US that are racist. Anything Africa, you can't find it in their departments. But there are some other universities that you will find at least maybe one or two other blacks, either black as a student or black as a lecturer. And they have interest in anything black. I mean, when I mean black, not even only in Africa, even black in the US. Any story that has to do with black in the US or black in Africa, they are interested, but you just need to move as time is moving. For example, before I came into the program, I only knew how to do a bit of SPSS, but when I came, they said, no, they don't use SPSS, everything is R. And it was mandatory that I must use either R or Python. So imagine if you don't even have experience of SPSS at all, there's nowhere to start. I had to begin to learn R, and I don't have choice. So you have to begin. I am now translating from qualitative to quantitative. And in fact, not even just quantitative again now. Some are even moving to machine learning. So you need somebody that cannot even cope with statistics, basic statistics, that will not be thinking of machine learning. But in all this, they just want to have some certain skills. And then from there, you can move and God will guide you. And let me also reiterate on the issue of recommendation letter that I mentioned earlier. One of the reasons why I emphasize on, if possible, if you can get it from your, your recommender, it will be very interesting for you to see the content of what they actually wrote last year, so that you don't assume that they are actually, they are saying what is necessary for, for the program, because it's also one of what you need to ensure it's properly documented. Let me just share this, just a few minutes. Okay. Now, in your letter of recommendation, your letter of recommendation, your lecturer needs to mention, that's why it's better you get one from your research advisor, because he knows more of your research strengths and your skills. You need to mention, if the person has taken you one or two courses, you need to mention how were your performances in those courses. One, what did you do together? Was it only your research? And then you need to make it personal. And as Dan mentioned, pronoun is very key in this place. So when you are getting information about advisor, potential advisor, or supervisor, as you may call it in Nigeria, make sure you know the pronoun of that person. The person may be a girl, or sorry, the person may be a lady, and it's using he as pronoun. If in the letter you're addressing to the person and you're using she instead of using he, he's not going to reckon with that letter, and it's going to be a problem. So get all those things, so that those things should be part of what you are including in your letter of recommendation, and it should be detailed. So don't just go and get something that will say, I've known him for 5 years, he's a good girl or he's a good boy, and then they just sign. It doesn't maybe just one paragraph. No, it should be detailed. They want to see all those things properly written. And then the last thing I want to mention, especially for those who are in humanities, because in sciences, it's not difficult for you to get an aspect or a field to work on, and then you can get funding. But humanities, you have to be diplomatic. And then that's why I did some, some background check. And I discovered that if you are planning or you are working on some of these fields that I want to I mentioned earlier, whatever we are sharing, don't use it. If you use it for the school that I've already used it for, because the school already have it in their database. The moment you use it for them, their software will bring it out that someone has already used this thing before. We are just using it as a guide. Now, for those who are in humanities, some of these fields that I'm sharing now are very fast growing. You want to work on gender, you want to work on children, even children, maybe on the early childhood or anything that has to do with children. There's a lot of interest in that. Peace linguistics, US is having internal crisis, Middle East, Africa is having crisis. And then you want to work on language documentation, computational methods or language modeling, automation in linguistics, language without border, pidgin and creole, and then with scientific documentation. And then you want to work on interdisciplinary field like literature cancer. You want to look at, there are some literature that I've already mentioned how cancer can be treated, and people are actually working on that. Some literature texts have actually mentioned how mental issue can be treated. So if you are coming from that angle, that is going to be a very good, point that you can bring to the table. And then I think by that, we have come to the end of the meeting. So we just want to spend, we have just spent about 48 minutes to speak. So we want to just hear your questions. So if you have a question, just raise your hand.
Can I add one or two things to all that you have said? Yeah, I also want to say that, well, it might appear as if there are some research areas that are on the demand. However, I would also like to say that once you know your interest and you also know who you want to work with, like okay, let's say you're applying to a particular school, you want to study engineering, for instance. So you need to check the profile of the lecturers, the faculty members in that particular department. And when you see anyone whose area of interest aligns with yours, you will need to look at the CV of that lecturer and try to go through all the publications of the lecturer. Try as much as possible to read through all of those publications, most especially if you are thinking of the person being your advisor, or maybe the person actually used to get a whole lot of grants and you will want the person to sponsor you. It might be good that you read through the articles, you read through the papers, you read through all the publications of the lecturer. Now, while reading through, you can also look at some of the maybe limitations to the study. You can check under discussion to identify gaps that have not been filled in that particular research area. So those gaps that you have identified might not be areas you personally might want to focus on. Sometimes one thing I've also discovered is that when you have discussions with these people and you talk about their research, you talk about what they have done, they are somehow excited that you are reading their work. So that might give you a kind of advantage also. So I want to suggest that you try to read their work and also look at some of the gaps you might need to fill in that area of research. So I think.
Thank you very much. Your point is actually very valid. And let me quickly add that there are some lecturers that on their profile, as he mentioned, They will mention what the kind of research they are doing at the moment, and then the kind of people that they want to engage in their lab. And one of why you need to do thorough study or investigation is that you want to do something on language does not mean you can only check linguistic departments. For example, I know a lecturer in psychology, and last year, the lecturer was actually interested in prosody, and prosody is actually studied in linguistics. And the lecturer has so much funding, and he said he was looking for people who have interest in prosody. And I was like, this is what should have been mentioned in linguistic department. But the lecturer is in psychology, and he wanted somebody having language background. So if, for example, you have language background and you are thinking of working on prosody and so on, so don't just always think that, oh, I just want to check the linguistic department. No, they do that one in psychology. They do it in special education. They are looking at people who have speech disorder and how they pronounce some words and so on. So you need to spread your tentacle. And the easiest way that you can do that is to check their publication, as Brochette mentioned. Check their publication, check through academia, check through ResearchGate, check through LinkedIn, check through Google Scholar. As you put down their name, as you pen their name there, it's going to pop up different things they are actually working on. And with that, you will know what they need and how you can bring what you have on, bring the skills you have on their table, and then you can begin to talk from there. Let's entertain questions. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. They will call on you for your questions. Okay, Okolo, please, pardon me if I didn't get your name correct. Joseph, you are free, you can ask your question. Joseph, if you can hear me, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I said, thank you so much for this session. I really learned a lot. This is my first time of joining the meeting. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, I said this is my first time for joining the meeting. So
Yeah, okay.
it's really interesting and I've learned a lot. I just realized that I've not even known anything about writing. So those letters, application letters you mentioned. Okay, so I have interest in ALT, for instance, English language teaching. So I don't know if I can know the processes of going about it. How do I begin?
Okay, English language teaching. So what's your interest in English language teaching? Because why I ask the question is, are you focusing on curriculum development, curriculum evaluation? Are you focusing on the learners? Are you focusing on the teachers? Are you focusing on the syllabus of which country, what language are you planning? Is it the language? Is it where English is spoken as second language or as a foreign language?
Yes.
Or where English is
Okay.
actually becoming their native language? So these are things that you need to first identify before you now say, okay, what gap have you discovered that you want to actually work on in the language teaching or in the English language teaching?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I want to suggest to you. Okay, go on.
I said I have interest in countries that have English as their second language. Like teaching English language now to countries that learn English as a foreign language.
What do you do in your degree?
I did English education.
Okay.
English language education, yeah.
Okay, we need to meet because what you are thinking is good, but when you are thinking of teaching English to countries that speak English as second language or third language, you should also know that the background in Nigeria, English not been written anywhere as official language, but it is assumed to be official language. And you are not a native English speakers. We are,
Exactly.
if you are studying the English model, we are being from outer circle and we are gradually coming to the inner circle and we are claiming the ownership of English. So you cannot claim that you want to teach the English. So it's better that you look at something else that may not be focusing on teaching it, but you are looking at what is being taught, like the what's it called, like the policy. Maybe you want to work on the policy, you want to work on the curriculum, depending on what you had in your curriculum program. If, for example, I mean your undergraduates, if your interest is on curriculum, how they can integrate some things, maybe we can develop the program. We can talk about that. That is a specific question.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for that insight. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Okay. So Akinwale Matthew. Okay. You can go on. Akinwale, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. If Akinwale is not. Okay.
Hello.
All right, go on.
Please, I read chemical engineering first degree. My second degree is in industrial and production engineering. And I'm having a problem in applying to several places because of the difference in the engineering field. Now, I saw some application in which I've applied, even some university you gave during one of your speech, maybe around probably March or whatever. Now, the problem I'm having, after writing an SOP, at times I will get reply, I will not get reply in some places. But I was thinking that is it because of the diversify, maybe difference in the engineering aspect? You know, chemical engineering is first degree, second degree industrial and production engineering. And the reason being that I was applying to several places in relating to mechanical engineering, since industrial engineering is all a comparison of all engineering. Sir, one, the first question, can I use the same SOP that I use for one department, just editing some things and send to other schools? The one that or every time I sit down to apply, I will continue writing SOP, different SOP. That's the first question. What might be the second one is that what might really be the problem of not getting at least a positive reply for many things that you have applied for? That's the second question. Did you get me, sir?
Dan, you want to go first?
Okay, I think so Brahma, I think the first thing you have to do is so you read chemical engineering for your first degree, and then you read industrial engineering. As much as you say industrial engineering encompasses all things, I think somebody's unmuted, sorry. I think you have to remember that there's a reason why all these engineerings are separate, right? They are standalone. It's what did you do? Did you do like the project you did for both? Were they related?
The project I did for the second degree, some of the most of the university I applied to is on ergonomics. Something I did on ergonomics is ergonomics related. So I normally do the SOP so that it will at least it will go in line with the expected, as in the courses I'm applying for, the department I'm applying for. I will restructure the SOP so that it will fit in, since the industrial and production engineering is all encompassing. That's what I do.
I think you have to first separate the view of it. Industrial engineering, as much as you are saying is encompassing, the people receiving it are not seeing it as encompassing.
Okay.
So you have to first take it separately, that you have expertise in two types of engineering.
Okay.
So hold that first to one side. Now, what you did in chemical engineering for your first degree, what was it on?
You mean the project?
Project, yes, the project.
Is on artificial neural network. The detections of chemicals through artificial neural network.
Okay. So now, let me now ask you a question. If you were offered an opportunity to continue with ergonomics or to do a research directed at artificial neural networks, which one would you go with?
I prefer that of ergonomics in industrial production, the one I did in masters.
Okay, so I think the reason why my voice is echoing is because Matthew is unmuted, but I've muted him now. So what I would say, Matthew, firstly, is that you cannot use the same SOP for your applications, right? So take it this way: you applied the past few years or the past year and it didn't go through. So it means that that SOP is not doing well enough for you, right? That is one.
Okay.
Now the second part, the question where you ask, like, what really is happening? I think that when you write your SOP or when you put your application package, right, you have an experience in chemical engineering, you have an experience in industrial engineering. So I'll take the industrial engineering like your master's or your second degree. Or are they both bachelors?
No, the industrial, the MSc is in industrial engineering, while the first degree is chemical engineering.
Okay, so what you need to do is when you are applying, when you're writing your application, when you're writing your SOP, right, you have to start off with a general field of interest. Don't start from the fact that, oh, I have studied artificial neural networks or something, or something, and then I also have experience in industrial engineering. You have to start with a problem statement or something that is of general interest to you. Okay, I'm interested in how engineering protocols can be used to maybe solve everyday issues or be used to do this. And then you now go into like, okay, in this line, I've been able to gain experience in using artificial neural networks to determine or detect or identify chemicals. Furthermore, I've also applied industrial. You mentioned the industrial engineering technique, right? I've used that to investigate the effect of certain or wrong or bad ergonomics in blah 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 blah. So anybody that is reading it already sees that, okay, even though he has two different engineering experiences, the person will say it's because he's so committed to this issue or he's so committed to this field, right? That he's looking to make like a change in or he's looking to improve. That is why that if you put him in chemical engineering, if you put him in industrial engineering, if you put him in mechanical engineering, whatever engineering you put him in, right? He's able to still transfer those skills and solve that problem. So you have to first position yourself as someone who is interested in solving a certain problem, right? And so in pursuit of this, you have learned so many things, either from a chemical engineering perspective into an industrial engineering perspective. So it even now makes you a more worthy candidate because you are coming with two different skill sets. You are coming as a chemical engineer and you are coming as an industrial engineer, which most people are not. Most people are usually one or the other. So it makes you like even a stronger candidate. But you cannot just come and say, okay, I have a chemical engineering perspective, I have an industrial engineering perspective. And the person is like, it looks like you're jumping about, right? So you have to start with like, I'm interested in this, right? So a good example is when I applied, I'm in the integrated systems biology program, which is like a combination of computational biology and wet lab research. So it's like every problem I look at, I'm looking at it as a system. And we know that a system is what? A combination of different organs, right? So if I'm trying to solve something that is HIV related, I'm looking at it at the cellular level, I'm looking at it at the transcriptomic level, DNA level, protein level, and metabolomic level. Those are like, that's the system approach, right? So it means that if I was not in integrated systems biology, if I was taken to biological sciences, if I was taken to ecology, because I have said I'm interested in solving issues with a systems approach, it means that if you take me to ecology, if you take me to chemistry, I'm going to look at it at different levels. So the person knows that I'm not just coming with one approach. I'm looking to integrate whatever I need to integrate to solve that problem. And that is the same approach you need to take. That you have a diversity of experience, right? Or a diverse experience. That can be a weak point, and it can also be the strongest point ever that you can have, right? So you have to first position yourself, like your first paragraph, your first conversation in your SOP, or when the person is writing a recommendation letter for you. It has to say that he is this. This is who he is. He's interested in this. He's passionate about this. And then by the time your experiences start following, it begins to make a lot of sense to them, right? Is okay. For example, let's say you're interested in um, improving factory work life or factory work experience or something. Let me just share an example. And then now I'm telling you that I'm interested in this. And because of that, I was able to say, okay, how can we use neural networks to detect certain things so that people don't have issues in the factory, don't get polluted or contaminated or whatever it is. Also, because I'm also interested in this, I also looked at how can people be more comfortable? How can there be more economic how can there be better economics in the factory? Why? Because if there are better economics, we can prevent this, and that, which is usually right the aim or the goal of each of those research. So you have to think about each research that you did or project that you did for both sides and find a way that when you are writing, it has to connect with your general goal, your general interest, right? Like I said, from the start, I've only been interested in virology. So I already knew that if I was applying to any program, even if it was not a virology program, like my program is not a virology program. Most people in my program are either in cancer or um, developmental biology. But through God's help, I was able to get in because I was talking about solving an issue in a certain group. But because I know that it's still the same technology that we're using across all those research fields, we're using genomic sequencing, we're using CRISPR-Cas, we're using all those things. So I'm saying that what this program is going to give me is those technologies, the understanding of those technologies, so I can answer this question, so I can solve this problem. So that means that although I'm not what that class usually looks like when they admit, I'm giving them a different perspective, but also showing them that when I come in, it's not like I'm going to be suffering. I'm going to also learn from them. So you have to think about what your general interest is. What are you passionate about? Now you have that. You have to now write a great statement to start off that, okay, this is it. This is it. Then you now start connecting your experiences, right? To show how those experiences are positioning you to be a better candidate for that goal that you're trying to achieve. That is the only way I feel like you can hit it, right? You cannot like separate those experiences and say, okay, I will talk more about my industrial engineering experience or my industrial engineering project, or I'll talk more about my chemistry or chemical engineering project, right? You have to figure out what is my interest, right? It has to be an interest that even if I was not a chemical engineer, if I was a mechanical engineer, if I was an electronical engineer or an electronics engineer, I can still attempt to solve that problem, or I can still attempt to target that thing, right? And then so it will now make more sense that even though he went through different kind of engineering, it still makes a lot of sense because he still positioned himself better to be able to solve that problem. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think I have one or two things to add. The first thing you also need to, as Dan has mentioned, because he has said a lot, maybe you may need to also go over the recording. AI can also help you to fix it out. If, for example, you just type your interest for the degree, and you put your interest for masters together, and then you now suggest a topic, right? And then you put the interest of what you want to do in your PhD. It can weave everything together and it can give you a very nice and robust interest or robust insights. It can be a guide in addition to what Dan mentioned. The second thing you need to also know is that those schools you apply to, what were their acceptance rates? You know, sometimes people just apply to a school. You don't check the acceptance rate. If the acceptance rate of a school is 5%, you know that you can't compare the chance of getting into that school with a school with 65% acceptance rates. It's also part of what you need to know. Another thing you should know is that what skills do you have on your CV that does not make you competitive, right? Because you are referring to engineering. Dan can bear witness. Anything engineering, computer science, you will see many Indian, Chinese, and so on. So you are competing with them, and then you need to have some skills. What skills do you have? Do you have publications? Where are you publishing your work? Who are you involving? And many of those things can also be part of what you need to consider in your program. But that you have two different programs, it should be a strength. I was coming from education, and then from education, I moved to language, and I was to apply for MA for linguistics, for example. And what I'm doing interconnect, but it's not in the same department, it's not in the same field. So you can just look at what connects, what you did in your master's with your undergraduates, and then how it can also help you to achieve what you plan to achieve, what you plan to do in your PhD. So don't see it as a weakness, it's even a strength. Yeah, any other questions?
Sir, Brashegun,
Go on.
please. Go on. Hello, sir. The issue of GRE, can proficiency in English proficiency collected from your institution be substituted for GRE? Or there was a time I sent a question, nobody replied that. Can anyone get me the price or whatever on how to do the GRE? Whether I was ready that time, but no response. But that does not is the issue. But can the proficiency collected from my institution be substituted for GRE tentatively till you do the, as in that letter, can it be used in any application as a kind of a English proficiency if you don't have GRE, whatever, or IELTS, whatever?
Wait,
Because most of the institutions are requesting for GRE.
It's okay.
It's okay.
There are so many
There are
universities
so many universities
that can mute yourself now.
mute yourself now.
Okay.
There are many universities that do not require GRE for your field. Get that one sorted out. Second, GRE is different from language proficiency tests. Sometimes some schools request language proficiency tests. But sometimes when you write, I knew of someone, a colleague, the school was requesting language proficiency exam. And then the school does not know that Nigeria speaks English as lingua franca. So he drafted a letter and informed the program coordinator that Nigeria is a lingua franca. And then English has been the medium of instruction since primary school, from primary 3, all through university. He has been tested in English all through his life and so on. And the school waived the requirements. So English proficiency is different from GRE. If a school is requesting GRE, even if you get accepted into that school without GRE, your chance of getting funding is going to be very slim. So if GRE is there, is part of the requirements, leave that school and look for another school that does not have required GRE. Now, if you have your money for GRE, you can go ahead and do GRE. And you had a question that time. The person I knew was not, I think I asked you where you stay. You stay Ondo. The person I knew was actually in Abeokuta, and that was why I couldn't even make any suggestion. And you know, before you can make recommendation, it must have been someone you know, so that you don't just say, oh, it was recommended, and then you go ahead and the person does not do a thorough work, and then God forbid somebody fails. So that's why we are careful. We can only suggest when we know the person we want to recommend. So those are the things that you can consider. The reason many schools require GRE, depending on if you have 2-1 or you have a good, strong results for your master's, many schools will not require GRE. Why don't you focus on schools that will not require GRE if you know you don't have GRE at the moment? For the letter, for the language proficiency, yes, you can require that from your school. I think in some schools like UI, we collect 5,000. I think OAU, UNN, we collect like 10,000. But you can get the letter to say, oh, this one was taught and evaluated in English. And that can waive English proficiency, not GRE. Every requirement differ. Study the language of every requirement to know either you have them or not. Either line, I'm only in 2000. Now I study economics. Okay. My project was part of. Okay. Now, Deborah is asking a question about SPSS and R. If you are thinking of economics, econometrics, anything economics, sometimes it's not how they use. They use SPSS one, they use theta as well. But if you know how, if you have SPSS skills, you can transition that to R. It becomes a bit easier. The major problem one we have with R is, for example, you have not been doing quantitative study before, quantitative work before. So before you now begin to learn skills on how to ask statistical questions is a skill on its own. But you already have that one. So to transition to R is not going to be difficult. Just download R. It's even open access. Download R on your laptop and then go on YouTube and watch different videos on R. And then those one can give you some insights. And that would be, if you know SPSS, you know R. The other one they use is, I think, is theta. So you can also check, if you check the program instructions, sometimes you will see what the lecturers in the department are using. That can also guide you or give you insight into what you need to know. Not that they always want to have proficiency in those skills, but they just want to have at least basis so that when you come, nobody will sit you down and say, oh, this is how we use R. But at least you have some skills and then you can just, as time goes on, because there will be some courses that you also take that will still teach you on R, but those courses will be like maybe within 13 weeks, and you can't expect to know R within that period. But if you have some background, that will help you. So somebody is asking, sorry, today is my first time. Is GRE SPSS? What is GRE? Okay, SPSS is statistical analysis. I've forgotten the full meaning. I think maybe Roshem can help us with that. But R is just R. That is just the name. GRE is, Dan, could you remind me the meaning of GRE again?
I think it's either general or graduate something exam. I can't remember what the full name is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like basically what you write. It's like a general, like think of JAMB, right? So it's like a general exam for people applying to graduate school, basically. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you. Graduate education records. Observation, most schools open, it's not mandatory, right, to everyone. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, if a school says GRE is optional, they know that such school, even if you want to apply to such school, just use one eye to apply. Because if they tell you that it's optional, it means that if 30 people apply to that same program, out of 30, 15 have GRE. Even if their result of the GRE is low, they can still consider the one with GRE with compared to the one without GRE. But let me tell you that it's not only one thing that determines either you get accepted into a program or not. They have many things they are checking. They are checking your CV. They are checking your SOP. They are checking your proposal. And if you don't have proposal before, you can draft the proposal. I remember when I was writing, they would just say, don't worry, send me your proposal. Let me go through. So it was proposal that I was also sending. And then not only that, they want to check your letter of recommendation before you now look at like GRE and so many other things, because they know that there's corruption everywhere. So somebody may even write GRE and have good results. And let's say other things, the lecturer that you have worked with wrote something bad in your undergraduate or other programs you have done, there was no any improvement. Maybe in your degree, you have a second class upper. In your master's, your result is more or less like second class lower. And then you now go for GRE and you have a very good result. They are going to be doubting, and your letter and your advisor is writing something, and what is writing is even negative, not that maybe you know. So they are going to be doubting it. So that's why it's not just one thing that determines. All those things are going to be they are going to be all encompassing before they will now decide on either you are qualified or not. Does it reduce your chance of, was that about language proficiency? Does it reduce something of evaluation? Does it add up? Well, on language proficiency, if you ask, that's why sometimes some of them, before you are accepted into the program, they will have interview with you. The moment you can communicate, like for example, in my department, Nigeria was also enlisted as English-speaking country. So that means once you are coming to the program, they will not require you to submit language proficiency. Some department, meanwhile, before they do, so when you come into the program, even when you don't submit proficiency exam before application, they expect you to submit proficiency exam as the moment you are into the program. But before we came, they already added English as English proficiency. They already added Nigeria as English-speaking country. So with that, we don't need to, it's not part of the requirement. So if a school says a particular requirement is optional, it means if you have it, it had advantage to your, it's had scores or point to your scores. If it doesn't say anything about it, why don't you go for a school that does not even say anything about it than a school that will say, there are some schools that they don't joke with. I know a school in Pittsburgh, they don't joke with proficiency exam. They want you to have it. But if you are from sciences, they don't ask. They'll just say, okay, don't worry, if you can get a letter, and then they will waive it for you. So it depends. Josh, you can ask your question. Akinwale Mati, you can put down your answer so that we don't mistake you for someone who has not asked question. So Josh can go ahead, and Elizabeth will be next.
Good evening, sir.
Good.
And sir, I have a question concerning the GRE for those that are in the STEM aspect, not necessarily engineering. Because I think in the engineering aspect, they always ask for this GRE, they ask for this GRE most times. Even when it is sometimes they actually put it as an optional, on an optional basis. So for someone that has a 2-2 now, I think is it ideal to still go for the GRE? That's one. And two, in the engineering aspect, I don't think there's any university, maybe I've not done my research well, that waive GRE as much. So I don't know if there's any way you can just enlighten us on that, because the engineering aspect, I don't think I've seen schools that waive GRE at all. And for people that have a 2-2, is it compulsory they must have all this English proficiency and IELTS and this GRE also?
I'll just let me say something on the results. If your result is 2-2, I will advise you do GRE. That is very important. Not even doing GRE. If possible, I'll ensure you also do what's it called? Evaluation of your results, like WES. If by the time you do WES, your result may jump from 2-2 to 2-1. Yes, it happens. If you do WES, your result may jump to 2-1. Now, for the GRE, we have just mentioned that if you have GRE and you're applying to engineering, then it increases your chances. That is one. Some other thing that you can also consider is, if you know that is it going to be every program in engineering that is requesting GRE? I don't know. I've not done that finding. Maybe Dan has anything to say about that.
I don't know, but it's possible that they might require. It also depends on the universities, because I don't know how many universities you have checked. That's another thing you have to know. But it's a possibility, because engineering is in whatever form it is, it has a bit of mass, right? So they might want to like see your math, your quantitative or qualitative skills, right? Which is what GRE basically is. So I would say that if you check like the schools, like certain schools, right? That's what we talk about deal breakers. There are certain things that schools require for admission. Look at what you have. If you feel like you have almost everything and GRE is the only other thing left, right? And you see that, okay, out of 10 schools you check, only one does not require GRE, but 9 require GRE. And for those 9, you have almost everything apart from GRE. Then I think a good thing is to write the GRE, right? So that you have like both the option to apply to the school that does not require GRE and the school that requires GRE. Because like from what you are saying, a lot of programs for engineering are requiring GRE, right? So it will be better to write it. Now, the other part about having a 2-2, it's not a problem, just like Shegun said, because the US uses GP, right? GPA. So if you fail a course and you take it, or you have a low score and you take that course, they use the higher one, right, in calculating. And so and also remember that even if you did if you study in a university in Nigeria that uses a 4.0, it's not the same way it's still being calculated, right? Also, if you're in a university that studies 5.0, please don't try and convert using percentages and saying, okay, I had a 3.5 with a 5.0, 3.5 times 100 times. You are still going to find yourself lower. Now that's what I'm saying, because I know people who do that. So it's a different way it's calculated. And that's why we always talk about using the West IGPA calculator, which is free. It's just that you have to sit down and take your time to type it in, right? Because I'll give you a good example. For my first degree, I had a 2-2. For my master's, I had a first class. But all the US applications, you have to put in your bachelor's, right? And by the time I would calculate, I had like a 4.5 on a 7.0 because I went to UI for my first degree. And by the time I would calculate it with on the West IGP calculator, it was a 3.1 over 4. And the basic requirement for applications is 3.0 for most schools in the US. So if I was to like do like the percentage calculation, it was going to be a 2 point something. But by the time I followed the US way of calculating, I was on a 3.1 out of 4.0. And that like just even put my mind at ease. And then by the time I calculated my master, which already a distinction, I already knew that was going to be higher than 3.5 or something. So that's why, like Shegun said, it's important, even if you finish with a 2-2, don't don't like be bothered about that. First do your IGPA calculator, see what it looks like, and then start planning to have like a West evaluation of your transcript. Because that's what will help you. Sorry, before Shegun just goes on, just to add again, because in the US, like a B or a pass is 80, right? So even those that have first class, if you have a 70, they look at it that you barely passed until they get to your grade. So that's why sometimes it's good to actually do a West, especially when the school requires it. It's good to do a West evaluation because that's when that converts it to like, okay, they can now look at your transcript and understand that, okay, that 75 you had is actually a distinction and not a C plus or a C. Yeah, sorry, Sheldon.
Okay, yeah, they are mentioning that actually, as you have mentioned, GRE, if a school requires it, go ahead. But I just checked, there are over 4,300 universities in the US for master's program and 282 universities in the US for PhD program. So sometimes if you do a thorough research, you may find, but if it's mandatory, as you have seen so far, then you can go ahead, prepare for your GRE and write, especially when your result is low. You don't have publication, you don't have many things that you can bank on, then it may be better that you just go for the GRE. Prepare very well and make sure that your result for GRE is very strong, because it's not just that you are writing GRE, but that you have a good result. Elizabeth, can you go ahead with your question? Elizabeth Francis.
Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, thank you, sir. Sir, you were talking about proposal writing. So I want to know, sir, is it mandatory we submit proposal while the
Okay.
application?
What's the department? What field are you?
Education, I did education management, sir.
Okay, well, I just mentioned my own case. Since I already knew that I was applying for a PhD program, and I knew that humanities is very competitive. And then I also know that those lecturers don't have enough time to sometimes to say they want to schedule a meeting with you and so on. So I wanted to just have more or less like a 5 pages of, I think 4 pages of proposal. And the proposal had already mentioned what I want to do and then and so on. And even till sometimes my advisor still remind me of my proposal and say, oh, in your proposal you wrote this. So sometimes don't think that when you write, because sometimes the grant they have is specific. They have mentioned that they want to use this grant for so person. Because for example, now I'm working with Vice Chancellor Research Humanities for the whole university. So you never know what's it called, the funding that you had already got. And sometimes it reminds me of, do you remember what you write in your proposal, this and that? So don't think that you just write something. It's not that maybe when you write a proposal, that proposal is what exactly you are going to do. But at least it gives you some guide that, oh, this, you already know what research is all about. This is what I want to do. After your first semester, second semester, your research idea will change. Your research proposal will change, definitely. But at least you are bringing something to the table, and that's what they want to. So they don't want it to that after first semester, second semester, you are still clueless. You don't know what exactly you want to do. That is what they want to avoid. So it's not just about proposal, but if you can draft the proposal of what you want to do, it will also be a very good one that when you send a cold email to a lecturer, you attach your CV, you attach your transcript, and then you are attaching your proposal. You can read your proposal and say, oh, I remember I sent proposal to many professors, and some of them will say, oh, sorry, the person that was that can guide you in this study, maybe it just died 2 years ago, or the person that could guide you in this study just left the program, or so is a good way. So if you had told me that the person that could that could advise me for the study had already left, or he had died, or is no longer in the department, then I don't need to waste my time to apply to that school. So sometimes it's good if you can, but it's not that it's mandatory. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Josh, we have already attended to you. So any other questions? Yeah, if there are no questions, I think, I don't know if Dan or Bro Shegun has anything to say, then we can bring it to a close.
Let me just add before version. Please also, like in all I've said today, the most important thing again that you should take away, if you take nothing else, right, is getting the right information and then acting on that information. So it's not just enough that you get all the information you need, but you have to act on it. And so, just like Boshegun said and everything, when you figure out the program you want to apply to, check what is required, right? Check the requirements. So that makes it easy for you. Like he said, it makes it easy for you not to even bother. So for example, you have five universities that you have checked. Three don't require GRE or English language exam for Nigerians. The other two do. It means that I don't need to bother with those two. I can focus on the three, right? So you should have what you have you should have what you call a deal breaker. What is it that you see in an admission that maybe right now, either maybe due to finances, maybe you want to do West and you're comparing West and GRE. Okay, I need to do my West instead. Okay, I will look for schools that require West, but I don't require me to write a GRE for my application. That makes it easy. I focus on those schools. So you have to go through the programs and figure out what is it that you can actually work with. What is it in the application requirements that I can put forward, right? And then I'm satisfied with it, right? You don't just want to apply to a school that, for example, that requires GRE or requires English language exam, and you are hoping to get in one way that is not going to happen, right? It's not magic. It's not going to happen. So you have to ensure that you have looked at what is required, and you also allow you to also figure out what amount of time do I need. So maybe your school that fits everything you want, they have the funding you need, they have the research you need, they have everything that you want, and they are saying, okay, you have to send a West evaluated transcript. It makes it easy for you. You can go back to your university in Nigeria, Ghana, wherever, and start pursuing the process, right? You can start speaking to who you need to speak to. Oh, blah, blah. What forms do you need to submit to your university to start the process? And that makes it easy for you than maybe in November or in October, you're trying to have a waste evaluation that usually takes like maybe 6 weeks minus the Nigerian factor. So you also want to like figure out early, what do you need? And is this something I can do in terms of, oh, can I pay for a GRE? Can I focus on writing my GRE in August or September, right? Okay, I don't need to write GRE. I need to write an English exam. Can I register for an English exam and write it in the next 2 months, in the next 3 months, right? And then position myself to have this extra thing that gives me a better chance to get admitted. So you have to figure all that based on the requirements that each program in universities that you have found need. And then you can figure it out from there. But if you don't know what you need for each application, because each application is going to be different. If you don't know what you need for each application process, it makes it harder. And it means that you also rush, right? And when you rush, you won't give your best work. But now that schools have not started application processes, most of them, they will not start on like maybe October, ending of October into November. It makes it easy for you. Let me hand over either Bro Shegun or Joseph or Bro Shegun.
Okay. Before then, I think someone wanted to ask a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, Bro Shegun.
Yeah, you can go now.
Yes, I wanted to ask if a school needs, if I have masters and I have okay, first degree and master. So if a school requires transcript, should I send both that of masters and that of first degree? I have only West evaluation for first degree, but I don't have for masters.
Well, what you will still need to do, the best you will have done if somebody has cancelled you, is to have done the West evaluation for both masters and degree, because it will have cost you the same amount of money, right? Regardless of the number of whatever you are evaluating. Maybe the difference will have been maybe $20, but now you have to add up. If a school is asking, there are some schools that ask official transcript before they consider your admission. I know a school in Mississippi like that. Then it means that if you don't send the official transcript, they will not evaluate your application at all. They'll just dump it. So it means that it's mandatory that you send it to the school. So now that you have, you can tell the school that, sending it is not the problem, but what is going to happen is you will send the West, that the West for undergraduate is ready. You didn't know, you will have done the two together. Explain to the program coordinator, you will understand. And then you have to send the West to the school, and then you send the other one, which is your degree, your master's. You send the official also directly to the school, and then they can look at it. Because most cases, they use the degree transcript is even more important than the master's, right? So if you do that, they can allow you, and that one is not a problem. But in the future, look for how you can also add masters to your West, so that anytime you need your transcript, you don't need to be thinking of going to school, going to Nigeria, or sending message to somebody in Nigeria, because sometimes it can be so worrisome when there is strike and so on.
Okay, can I add something?
Free.
Okay. I know the last time we met, we really dealt with the issue of not receiving feedback when you send emails or when you submit application. Perhaps many of us here were not in that meeting, but I want to reiterate that we should not be discouraged. So if you send your application or you send your emails and you don't receive response, make sure you keep sending. Keep sending. You know, these people, they are also very busy. When I applied for my own program, in fact, before I applied, I sent an email to the person who happens to be my PI now. He was the first person, two lecturers actually in that same department. I sent emails to them. They were not responding. So I applied to the university, and you know, after the interview and everything, I was told to choose an advisor. Ordinarily, I shouldn't have even chosen somebody who I've been sending emails to and has not been receiving I had not been responding to my email. But, well, I have to pray to God, and I felt God was still telling me that same person should be the person that I should still choose as my advisor. And I must confess to you, he happens to be the best lecturer I had ever met in my life, and even in this place. But I was sending emails to him, he wasn't responding. So eventually I sent again, and that was when he now responded, and he gave me audience, and he scheduled a meeting with me, and the meeting was so successful. You know, last week I was still talking to him about it, you know, talking to him about my journey down to the school, how I sent emails to him, because he took me out and we were just discussing. And I told him all, he said that he's sorry that then he cannot even recollect what exactly happened, that he didn't respond to my email. So I want to say that let's not be discouraged. I'm trying to say this again because I know somebody asked that question. Don't be discouraged if you have sent an email and it happens that you did not receive any response. Please send again. Keep sending and sending and sending. And I also want to say that when we send emails, let's try as much as possible to be polite. Don't say, I sent an email to you 3 weeks ago or since 1 month and you have not responded. And no, be polite. You can say, I know you are very busy. And so just say things that will show that you are not, judging him for not responding to your email. So then, like Roshegun said earlier before we started this meeting, prayer is also very important. You pray and also allow God to lead and guide you in some of the decisions you will be making.
Thank you very much. Let me also add that you get response from a lecturer, you were scheduled for interview before your application does not mean that you are going to be automatically be accepted into the program. My colleague in the department told me that he sent a message to almost many lecturers or 2 lecturers. He didn't get any response. In fact, he got negative response. And eventually he was accepted into the program. Meanwhile, the other school that he sent message, he said, in fact, everything was smooth, the recording, the interview and everything, and they even promised him. That school did not eventually offer him admission. So don't think that once you don't get response in a school, then you don't need to apply. No, it's not outright. But getting response can also give you some insight. So please, and there's someone want to ask, how many schools should I apply? Apply to as many schools as possible. I don't know the number of schools I apply to as I'm talking to you, but I only know the schools that accepted me. I know I got 3 schools and I just showed you one of the one of the application that I use, the packet I use. So I can only recollect schools that accepted me. I can't remember all the schools I applied to. So apply to as many schools as possible. Just ensure that you do not submit a document for University of A for a University of B. So make sure you open a different folder so that when you are submitting the document, you are submitting the right document to the right school, as you have already mentioned in the body or in the content of your letter. Zaomi, please, you have to be fast. We have 30 minutes more.
All right. All right now. Well done, sir.
Well done.
Hello.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Well done. I've really been informed. Sir, I really want to get the list of schools that I can be able to apply to. Actually, I studied in English education and I graduated like 5 years ago. So with all this information, I'm interested. I want to apply. This is my first time to join you, and I want to know the list of schools so I can start making application.
Well, we'll try and post the list of schools. Very few, of course. I'm going to limit the posting of the schools maybe to university in Pittsburgh, but there are thousands of universities in the US that you can apply to. As English education, it's not compulsory that you must apply to, depending on your research. It's not compulsory that you must apply to
I
English.
don't really do English education. I have the mind of studying something on administration, like supervision, school administration, and not like school supervision and administration, something like that.
Then that's going to be School of Education. There are many schools in the US that you can apply to in School of Education, especially like learning science and learning science and policy. There are many schools that you can apply to. And don't just say, for example, now in University of Pittsburgh, there is learning science department, learning science and policy department. There is Department of Higher Education. So it means that you can even apply to the two departments for a similar program, as long as what you're applying for is related to what they are doing. So we will try, but bear in mind that we cannot send you all the universities that are offering that course, because we also have something to do. The best we can do is to give you this information, and then you can go on YouTube on Google and just type the course you want to do. Which university offer this for a PhD program in the US? It will give you the list of the university, and then you need to begin to check the requirements, what you have, what you don't have, what you need to apply to a school A. If you don't have the requirement, then drop down and apply to school B, and so on and so forth. So that's what we can do. If you're on the... Okay, I think if there's no other question, we can bring this meeting to a close. So brother, you can round up the prayer. I round up the meeting by prayer.
Thank you. In Jesus' name, in the mighty
Amen.
name of Jesus. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to learn. Thank you for the opportunity to review previous application processes, because we know that greater is the end than the start. And we know that you are giving us wisdom, you are giving us opportunities, you are giving us knowledge to achieve those dreams, to achieve those goals that we have for graduate school and other educational opportunities. That, Lord, as we live today, Lord, we shall live with wisdom, we shall live with knowledge, we shall live with ideas needed to make these dreams a reality, Lord, in Jesus' name. For that strength, that wisdom, that commitment that we need to constantly show up to make the right decision, that the Holy Spirit shall open it in our hearts, shall pour it into our bodies, and give us that understanding, Lord. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed.
Amen.
Thank you very much. God bless you. See you.